The other thing about those proposals that I found was interesting is that both of them were essentially dishonest, which is that Democrats, who at that time thought they would always lose Colorado, wanted to do something to split up Colorado's electoral votes, and so Republicans came back and said, well, we'll do that in Colorado, we'll do that in California. And the whole thing just died right there, right? Because if you split California's electoral votes in the current political, which is always the problem with these debates, is people tend to be very short-sighted, as Todd pointed out, and think that things aren't dynamic, think that it's fighting the last political war, right? But if California stays a strong Democratic state, then if you split the electoral votes there, Republicans start picking up 15, 20 of those 55 electoral votes in every presidential election. It'd be a big political advantage. So as I said, both sides tried to play that game and scared each other off, which I think was a good thing. There are two questions that we need to talk about. One is this specific national popular vote proposal and whether it's a good thing, whether it is good public policy. And the other question is whether the Electoral College is worth preserving. I want to take those questions in order. The national popular vote proposal is a good political tactic, smart political tactic if you want to get rid of the Electoral College because it's much more difficult to go through the constitutional amendment process. It is bad public policy. It is a very bad public policy. I mean, first of all, if you don't like the Electoral College for the structure by which it operates, national popular vote would leave all that structure in place. It's sort of the worst of both worlds. You still have all the structure of the Electoral College, but all of a sudden you also have sort of what kind of looks like, superficially at least, a national popular vote system, and you have these things trying to operate together. It's a recipe for litigation and all kinds of other problems. It's sort of a national popular vote overlay of the existing Electoral College system. And the other thing that should give us all questions in our minds is that to this point, really, it's been going on without a lot of public debate. The Seattle Times pointed this out after our state passed national popular vote. They said most of the citizens of Washington State have no idea about this. Frankly, people don't know very much about the Electoral College because it works so well. That's what I believe. National popular vote goes out and surveys people about what they think about the Electoral College. It's like going out and surveying people what they think about the Emoluments Clause in the Constitution, right? Or these petitions that the Comedy Central goes out and says, do you want to sign this petition to prevent women from suffraging? Right? I mean, it's not, if people don't know what they're being surveyed about, I question the validity of the survey. And the Electoral College is like that. Most of us, if we're not involved in this, we don't necessarily spend a lot of time studying these constitutional provisions. My experience when I went to Nevada to testify about their national popular vote bill down there, it passed the Nevada State House of Representatives. It was up in the Senate. It looked like it was going to pass, and I testified. The woman who wrote this book, it's a good book. If you're interested in Enlightened Democracy, The Case for the Electoral College by Tara Ross. She showed up, she testified, and we had some other allies as well. The bill died in the Senate committee as soon as basically people showed up and talked about it. The Nevada chapter of the ACLU showed up on our side, opposed to national popular vote. The Reno chapter of the NAACP showed up on our side, opposed to national popular vote. I want to focus on the NAACP, on the ACLU's argument for a minute, because the ACLU, love them or not, has some very good attorneys, and they have done some very good analysis of national popular vote. It gotten beyond the kind of bumper sticker slogans that you find in the confusing statistical analysis that you can find on National Popular Vote's website, and looked at how the law would actually work and said, well, the problem with this, ACLU is not a big fan of the Electoral College, but NPV would allow a person to win the presidency with any plurality vote. There's no majority requirement. And because it's a national popular vote type system, it would very naturally increase the number of candidates running, gradually decreasing the percentage of the winner under that system. And national popular vote, the way it's written, would allow someone to take the presidency with 20% of the vote, as long as every other candidate got less. The ACLU said this is a disaster, this is a terrible idea, it's terrible public policy. The ACLU attorneys said we cannot support this because this is not in the best interest of government here. The other the other concerns about national popular vote, it's not really national. It sets no national standards, and it can't because of the way that, because of the tactics involved, for which candidates get on the ballot. You can have a candidate win who didn't even qualify for the ballot in Washington State. It sets no qualifications for voters. You could, I mean, this is something that was brought up in a variety of states. That some states let felons vote, some states don't. I mean, states have different standards for who gets to vote in their elections. And national popular vote allows that to remain how it is. It does not actually create a national election. It has no national system for recounts. Right? You could have a presidential election that came down to a couple thousand votes nationwide, but in every state in the country, the margin would be outside of the margin to trigger a recount. You would have no legal mechanism by which to have a recount, even if there was a huge question of who the winner was. Right? Or you could have a couple states where it was close, and you could have competing recounts, where one state's government wanted to support one candidate, and one state's government wanted to support the other, and they had different standards for how they conduct recounts. You can imagine, I mean, NPV is a recipe for all kinds of nightmare scenarios. Even if you want national popular vote, that idea, this legislation is a bad idea. It's very bad public policy. It's motivated by political tactics. It is smart political tactics, but I still think it's not a good idea. Now let's talk about the Electoral College itself. And I think that the Electoral College is kind of like the keel of a sailboat. I like nautical metaphors, and they sort of work in Western Washington. And if you know what a sailboat looks like, right?
Nope.
What?
Blackboard.
Oh, okay. Here. Right? Sailboat has a keel down there, right? If you haul a sailboat up out of the water, and you look at a sailboat and you try to move a sailboat around, the keel is an annoyance. And if you look at a sailboat and you don't really know anything about a sailboat, but you've styled yourself a sailboat reformer, and you look at a sailboat up out of the water, it would be easy to say, you know, I've seen other boats up out of the water. They don't have this keel thing. I don't understand what this is for. It's clunky. It's not aesthetically pleasing, right? It's not really, it doesn't do anything for the boat. Let's just erase the keel of the sailboat. Let's just chop that off and patch that over. And the question is, what is a sailboat for, right? If the whole point of a sailboat is to look nice when it's up out of the water, if the whole point of a sailboat is to be easy to move around on land, then you'd be perfectly justified in hacking the keel off a sailboat, right? You would get yourself closer to those objectives. If the point of a sailboat is to sail at sea, and if you understand that, you know that the sailboat would be fine without the keel. You put it in the water, and everything would be just fine until the wind blew, and then you'd be very, very wet, right?